Story number 1. The Winter Ghost of Alaska, 1975. I still wake up in the dead of night. The memory of that fateful winter evening in 1975 gnawing at my consciousness like the relentless winds that swept through Alaska's unforgiving landscape. My name is Jack Morrison, and the haunting events that transpired on that bus ride remain etched in my soul. A constant reminder of the thin veil between reality and the supernatural. It was late December, the heart of winter, when my friends and I decided to embark on a road trip across the vast expanse of Alaska. We were a group of 6, myself, Lisa, Tom, Sarah, Mike, and Emily, bound by years of friendship and a shared love for adventure. The plan was simple: drive from Anchorage to Fairbanks, enjoying the pristine beauty of the snow-covered wilderness along the way. Little did we know, our journey would become a nightmare we could never escape. The bus was an old Greyhound model, sturdy and reliable, with enough room to accommodate our laughter-filled conversations and the warmth of camaraderie that bound us together. We set off on a clear morning, the sun casting a golden hue over the snowy terrain, promising a day of fun and exploration. The road stretched out before us, winding through dense forests and across frozen rivers, each mile bringing us closer to the remote beauty of the Alaskan interior. By late afternoon, we found ourselves navigating a particularly treacherous stretch of highway near the small town of Gulkana. The weather had been unpredictable, with forecasts warning of an approaching blizzard. But we dismissed the warnings as overly cautious. We were seasoned travelers, confident in our ability to handle whatever the road threw our way. The bus rumbled along, our spirits high as we shared stories and planned our next stops. As dusk settled in, the sky transformed from a brilliant blue to a swirling mass of dark clouds, the first flakes of snow beginning to fall. We pulled over at a rest stop to grab some hot drinks and stretch our legs. The air was crisp, each breath a visible puff in the cold evening air. Lisa, always the first to speak, commented on the beauty of the snowfall, her eyes reflecting the twinkling lights of the distant town. "Looks like that blizzard is moving faster than we thought," Tom remarked, a hint of concern in his voice. "Maybe we should consider finding a place to wait it out." We laughed it off, the notion of delaying our adventure too foreign to us. But as night deepened, the snowfall intensified, the gentle flakes morphing into a fierce blizzard that obscured our vision and made driving nearly impossible. The wind howled like a living beast, battering the bus with icy gusts that rattled the windows and doors. "All right, that's enough," Mike declared, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "We're going to have to find shelter." We turned back, the road now a blur of white as the storm raged around us. Visibility dropped to mere feet, the once familiar highway now a treacherous maze of snow and ice. The bus struggled against the relentless storm, the engine straining as we battled our way through the blinding flurries. Hours passed in a disorienting haze of white and darkness, the storm showing no signs of relenting. Our attempts to navigate became futile, the bus sliding and skidding on the icy road, our progress halted by the sheer force of nature. Exhausted and cold, we knew we were trapped, at the mercy of the blizzard's wrath. In the midst of our struggle, we spotted a faint outline of a building through the curtain of snow, a rundown motel that seemed to offer a glimmer of hope. With no other options, we guided the bus towards it, praying for sanctuary from the storm's fury. The motel loomed ahead, its dilapidated facade barely visible in the storm's grip. The sign, once bright, now flickered weakly, a testament to the building's long years of neglect. We pulled up to the entrance, the snow piling high against the doors, making it nearly impossible to open. "Do you think anyone's here?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. Tom nodded, attempting to force the door open. It creaked ominously, the sound swallowed by the storm as we pushed inside. The interior was dark and musty, the air thick with the scent of mildew and decay. We fumbled for our flashlights, the beams cutting through the darkness as we made our way to the reception area. The desk was empty, save for a thick layer of dust and a few scattered papers. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing through the empty hallways. "Is anyone here?" No response came, only the persistent howl of the storm outside. We exchanged uneasy glances, the eerie silence amplifying our fear. Lisa suggested we split up to search for a way to make the bus comfortable. But the others were hesitant, unwilling to leave the safety of the group. "Let's just wait it out here," Tom insisted, his eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. "We can try to get some rest and see if the storm eases in the morning." We settled down, huddling together for warmth as the storm continued to rage outside. The bus was parked haphazardly in the back of the motel, our makeshift shelter from the storm's fury. As the night wore on, the temperature inside the motel plummeted, our breaths visible in the frigid air as we tried to stay warm. Around midnight, strange noises began to fill the air, faint knocking sounds that echoed through the empty hallways, followed by the soft thud of footsteps on the wooden floors. We exchanged nervous glances, the unease growing with each passing minute. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her eyes wide with fear. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. "Yeah, it's like someone is walking around the motel." We tried to rationalize the sounds, attributing them to the building settling or the storm's effects on the old structure. But as the night deepened, the noises became more distinct, persistent knocking and footsteps that seemed to follow us wherever we went. "Maybe we should check it out," Mike suggested, his voice shaking slightly. "See if someone needs help." Before anyone could respond, a chilling scream pierced the night, reverberating through the motel like a ghostly wail. We froze, terror gripping us as we realized the sound came from outside the bus. Rushing to the window, we peered out into the storm, but saw nothing, only the swirling snow and darkness. "Something's wrong," Tom muttered, his face pale. "We need to leave now." We hurried back to the bus, the sense of urgency overpowering our fear. As we attempted to restart the engine, the bus refused to budge, the snow piling higher against the wheels. Panic set in as we realized we were trapped, our only option to seek further shelter within the motel. But as we opened the door, the storm seemed to intensify, the wind howling louder and the snow piling faster. The strange noises followed us, the footsteps now unmistakable as they echoed around us, getting closer with each step. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the snowstorm, a shadowy silhouette with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. It stood motionless, staring directly at us, an aura of malevolence surrounding it. "Who are you?" Lisa demanded, her voice trembling. The figure remained silent, his presence oppressive and suffocating. Without warning, it vanished into the storm, leaving us in stunned silence. But the terror was far from over. Moments later, we discovered that one of our group, Emily, had vanished without a trace. Her belongings were still in the bus, but she was nowhere to be found. "Emily!" I shouted, desperation lacing my voice. "Where are you?" No answer came, only the relentless storm and the lingering sense of dread that had settled over us. We frantically searched the motel, calling her name into the empty rooms, but she was gone, vanished as mysteriously as the shadowy figure had appeared. The rescue teams arrived the next morning, drawn by our desperate calls and the sight of the stranded bus engulfed in snow. When they found us, we were exhausted and frostbitten, our eyes haunted by the night's horrors. But the most shocking discovery was the bus itself. One of the seats was empty, with no sign of Emily or any attempt at departure. "We don't know what happened," Tom explained to the authorities, his voice cracking with emotion. "She was right here with us, and then she just disappeared." The investigation yielded nothing. No tracks leading away from the bus, no signs of struggle, only the lingering echo of the night's terrors. The local community was rattled, whispers of the winter ghost spreading through the region. It was said that the ghost-haunted buses caught in the storm, claiming one passenger each time, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a trail of fear. Years have passed since that tragic winter, but the memories remain vivid, haunting me like the restless spirits of that night. I often find myself staring out into the snow-covered wilderness, the winds whispering secrets that only the mountains understand. The image of Emily's terrified eyes and the shadowy figure stalking us through the storm are etched into my mind, a constant reminder of the darkness that can lurk within even the most adventurous of souls. The story of our ordeal became a cautionary tale, a legend of the winter ghost that haunted the Alaskan wilderness, preying on those who dared to challenge its fury. Some believe it was a restless spirit, a victim of the storm seeking revenge on the living. Others think it was something far more sinister, an ancient force that thrived on fear and despair, feeding off the souls of the lost. I never returned to Alaska, the memories too painful and the fear too real. My friends and I tried to move on, but the shadows of that night followed us, whispering in the dark corners of our minds. The loss of Emily left a void that nothing could fill, her absence a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the mysterious forces that govern our world. In the years since, I've heard stories from others who've experienced similar phenomena: buses stuck in blizzards, passengers disappearing without a trace, and shadowy figures haunting the snow-covered roads. Each tale echoes the same haunting elements, the same unresolved mysteries that left us questioning our understanding of reality and the supernatural. I often wonder what truly happened that night on the bus. Was it a figment of our collective fear, amplified by the storm's fury? Or did we encounter something beyond our comprehension, a dark presence that lurked in the heart of the storm, claiming souls with an unrelenting hunger? The winter ghost remains a symbol of the unknown dangers that lie hidden within nature's most extreme environments, a reminder that some mysteries are best left unexplored. The mountains, with their majestic beauty and untamed ferocity, hold secrets that defy explanation, guarding them with an unforgiving grip that spares none who dare to uncover their truths. And so, I warn others: heed the warnings of those who have walked these paths before, respect the power of nature, and understand that some places hold secrets too dark to uncover. For in the heart of the Alaskan wilderness, amidst the silent snow and the lingering shadows, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of spirits, leaving behind only echoes of fear and the eternal struggle for survival. Story number 2. The Haunting of Goryachaya Ravine, Russia. 1959. I still wake up in the dead of night, the icy winds of that fateful winter in 1959 gnawing at my consciousness like the restless spirits we encountered. My name is Alexei Ivanov, and the memories of that December in the Ural Mountains have left an indelible mark on my soul, a constant reminder of the thin line between ambition and madness. It was the winter of 1959 when a group of 5 university students, driven by a thirst for adventure and the allure of conquering the untamed wilderness, decided to embark on a mountaineering expedition to Goryachaya Ravine. We were a close-knit group: myself, Elena, Sergei, Mikhail, and Anna, bonded by years of friendship and shared dreams of exploring the unknown. The Ural Mountains, with their rugged beauty and treacherous terrains, promised both challenge and exhilaration. We set out in early December, the air crisp and biting, each breath a visible puff in the fading daylight. Our gear was meticulously packed: warm clothing, ample food supplies, sturdy climbing equipment, and a map of the region that Sergei had painstakingly studied. The journey began smoothly, our spirits high as we navigated through dense pine forests and across frozen streams, the snow crunching beneath our boots with each determined step. By the second day, the weather began to shift ominously. Dark clouds loomed on the horizon, casting long shadows over the snow-covered landscape. The temperature dropped rapidly, and the wind picked up, howling through the trees like a living beast. We decided to push forward, eager to reach our destination before the storm fully took hold. Little did we know, the mountain had other plans for us. On the third night, as we reached the base of Goryachaya Ravine, the storm hit with full force. Snow fell in relentless sheets, reducing visibility to mere feet. The wind howled like a chorus of lost souls, tearing at our clothing and threatening to dislodge our tent. Panic set in as we realized the severity of the situation. Trapped in the heart of the ravine with no clear path back, we huddled together inside our tent, trying to stay warm and conserve our energy. The storm raged on, the howling winds masking any attempt at communication beyond our immediate group. Hours passed in a blur of white and darkness, the storm's fury unrelenting and merciless. It was then that the true horror began to unfold. Around midnight, we heard it, a faint, rhythmic knocking on the tent's fabric. At first, we dismissed it as the wind finding new ways to batter our shelter. But the knocking grew louder and more deliberate, as if someone or something was trying to get our attention. Elena, ever the optimist, suggested it might be another group seeking refuge. But Sergei was skeptical. "It's too strong for anyone to be outside," he muttered, eyes wide with fear. Suddenly, the tent was ripped apart by a powerful gust of wind, and a blinding flurry of snow cascaded inside, chilling us to the bone. We scrambled to cover ourselves, our breaths visible in the frigid air. Through the torn fabric, we glimpsed shadowy figures moving with unnatural grace amidst the storm, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The sight sent a wave of terror through us, our hearts pounding in our chests. "Run!" Sergei shouted, grabbing my arm and pulling me towards the tent's entrance. But the snowstorm made it nearly impossible to see or move quickly enough. As we stumbled out into the blinding whiteout, the shadowy figures advanced relentlessly, their movements synchronized and purposeful. It was as if the very mountain had come alive, determined to claim us as its own. In the chaos, Anna tripped and fell, her screams lost in the storm's roar. Sergei tried to help her up, but another shadowy figure reached out, his touch cold and lifeless, with a force that seemed beyond human strength. It dragged Anna back into the snow, her cries echoing through the ravine before being silenced forever. The remaining four of us were paralyzed with fear, unable to comprehend the supernatural assault upon us. Desperation drove us to flee, our instincts pushing us to escape the relentless pursuit. We navigated through the blinding snow, our paths marked by the strange, ethereal footprints left by the shadowy figures, patterns that defied any known animal or human trace. The storm showed no signs of abating, and exhaustion began to take its toll, our bodies numb from the cold and our minds clouded by fear. After what felt like an eternity, we stumbled upon a narrow path that led deeper into the forest. The footprints seemed to fade into the distance, but the presence of the shadowy figures remained, a haunting reminder of the nightmarish encounter we had endured. We pressed on, hoping to find shelter and safety, but the forest seemed to close in around us, the trees towering like silent sentinels guarding ancient secrets. By dawn, the storm had finally subsided, leaving behind a serene but hauntingly quiet landscape. The snow lay undisturbed, a blanket of white covering everything in sight. We found ourselves at the edge of a frozen pond, the reflection of the early morning sun glinting off the ice like fractured glass. It was here that we made a horrifying discovery. The bodies of our friends knelt in the snow with eyes wide open in silent terror. One of them, Mikhail, was clutching his pocket watch, the hands frozen at the exact moment of his disappearance. The sight was more than unsettling. It was a grim testament to the supernatural forces that had plagued us. There were no visible wounds, no signs of struggle, only the eerie, unnatural poses that suggested something beyond human comprehension had claimed their lives. The mystery of our friends' deaths deepened, with authorities unable to explain the strange circumstances and the absence of any logical cause. In the aftermath, the legend of Goryakaya ravine grew, tales of restless spirits and ancient curses that haunted the snowy wilderness. Locals spoke of hearing faint cries and seeing shadowy figures moving through the storm, their presence felt but never fully seen. The ravine became a place of fear and superstition, avoided by those who respected the mountain's dark history. Years have passed since that tragic winter, but the memories remain vivid, like ghostly apparitions that visit me in the dead of night. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered peaks, the winds whispering secrets that only the mountains understand. The image of my friends, frozen in time with eyes full of unspoken terror, haunts me like a specter that refuses to fade. The haunting of Goryachaya Ravine serves as a chilling reminder of the unknown forces that dwell within nature's most extreme environments. It taught me about the fragility of life, the power of fear, and the enduring bonds of friendship forged in the face of unimaginable adversity. The mystery of that night remains unsolved, a testament to the eternal struggle between man and the supernatural forces that guard the wilderness with an unforgiving grip. And so, I warn others, respect the mountains, heed the warnings of those who have come before, and understand that some places hold secrets too dark to uncover. For in the heart of the Ural wilderness, amidst the silent snow and the lingering shadows, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of spirits, leaving behind only echoes of fear and the eternal struggle for survival. Story number 3. Whispers on Franklin Island, Canada. 1845. I still wake up in the dead of night, the howling winds of that fateful winter on Franklin Island clawing at my consciousness like the restless spirits we encountered. My name is Edward Blackwood, and the haunting memories of Sir John Franklin's ill-fated expedition have etched themselves into my soul, a constant reminder of the thin line between ambition and madness. It was the winter of 1845 when Franklin, driven by the relentless pursuit of discovering the Northwest Passage, led an expedition of 129 men into the icy embrace of the Arctic. The promise of glory and the allure of uncharted territories propelled us forward, our hearts filled with hope and our minds sharp with determination. The ship, the Erebus, cut through the frigid waters with unwavering resolve, carrying us toward the unknown. As we ventured deeper into the Arctic, the environment transformed into a desolate, unforgiving landscape. The sun became a rare visitor, barely gracing the horizon before slipping away into perpetual twilight. The cold was relentless, seeping into our bones and testing our endurance. Yet, the spirit of exploration kept us moving, each day a battle against the elements and the encroaching darkness. However, as the weeks turned into months, the weather began to shift ominously. Severe snowstorms battered the Erebus, forcing us to anchor near the treacherous Franklin Island. The island, cloaked in a blanket of white, seemed almost alive, its silent expanse a stark contrast to the chaos of the sea. It was here that our true nightmare began. The first signs of trouble were subtle, a sense of unease that settled over the crew like a heavy fog. Men who had been inseparable became withdrawn, their eyes haunted by invisible horrors. Supplies dwindled inexplicably, and the once harmonious camaraderie turned into tense silence. Whispers of paranoia spread like wildfire, sowing seeds of distrust among us. One bitterly cold night, as the storm raged outside, we gathered in the dimly lit cabin, seeking refuge from the tempest. The flickering candlelight cast long, wavering shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere thick with tension. Franklin stood at the helm, his face a mask of stoic determination. But even he couldn't hide the cracks beginning to form beneath his leadership. "Men," Franklin began, his voice steady yet weary, "we must remain united. The path ahead is fraught with peril, but our mission remains unchanged. Together, we will overcome whatever challenges lie before us." But his words offered little comfort. The next morning, we discovered the first of the strange marks in the snow, delicate, intricate patterns that seemed almost otherworldly. No one could explain their origin, and the unnerving feeling that something malevolent was watching us intensified. The marks led from our camp towards the dense forest that fringed the island, a place we had previously deemed impassable. Days turned into nights filled with sleepless fear. More men vanished without a trace, their disappearance marked only by the eerie symbols etched into the snow. When we searched, we found their frozen bodies, sitting upright with expressions of sheer terror, eyes wide open in silent screams. One in particular caught my attention. Thomas, a young navigator, was clutching a pocket watch. Strangely, the watch's hands pointed to the exact moment he vanished. A stark reminder of the inescapable grip of whatever haunted us. Desperation clawed at our sanity. The forest seemed to close in around us, the trees whispering secrets we couldn't understand. Strange noises echoed through the night, the soft rustling of footsteps, distant moans, and the faint sound of laughter that sent chills down our spines. Some claimed to see shadowy figures flitting between the trees, their forms indistinct yet undeniably human. One particularly harrowing night, as the storm reached its zenith, panic erupted among the remaining crew. Fuel reserves were nearly depleted, and the biting cold made every breath a struggle. The unity we once shared had disintegrated into factions, each group suspicious of the other. Accusations flew, friendships shattered, and the island became a breeding ground for fear and violence. In the chaos, Franklin made a desperate decision. "We need to make a final push to the northern ridge," he declared, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. "Perhaps there's a way to signal for help or find shelter from the storm." Reluctantly, a group of us followed his lead, trekking through the blinding snow with diminishing hope. The forest loomed like a sinister entity, its silence oppressive and thick with unseen threats. The symbols became more frequent, guiding us deeper into the heart of the island. It was there, amidst the frozen wilderness, that we stumbled upon the remnants of an old, abandoned cabin. The cabin stood as a relic of forgotten times, its walls cracked and covered in frost. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and something else, something metallic and unsettling. In the center of the room lay a large, blood-stained mirror, its surface distorted and fragmented. As we approached, the temperature plummeted further, our breaths forming icy clouds in the frigid air. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping us inside. The mirror began to shimmer, and the air grew heavy with an oppressive presence. Faces appeared in the glass, twisted visages of those who had perished before us, their eyes hollow and filled with anguish. The whispers crescendoed into screams, the voices of the lost souls reaching out to us with desperate pleas for release. "We are trapped," one of the apparitions intoned, his voice echoing through the cabin. "You cannot escape the storm's wrath." Panic surged through me as the realization dawned. We were not just battling the elements. We were confronting the very souls of those who had failed before us. The mirror seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, and the shadows in the room took on a life of their own, reaching out with icy fingers that threatened to pull us into the abyss. Desperate to break free, we attempted to force the door open, but it remained steadfast against our efforts. The spirits grew more aggressive, their presence suffocating and relentless. In the midst of the chaos, I felt a cold hand grasp mine, pulling me towards the mirror. Fear rooted me to the spot as the reflection stared back at me, eyes burning with a sorrowful rage. "Join us," the apparition whispered, his voice a haunting melody of despair. "Never leave. The storm will consume you, just as it did us." Summoning every ounce of willpower, I broke free from the spectral grip and rallied my friends. "We have to fight this," I urged, my voice barely above a whisper. "We can't let them drag us into the storm." With renewed determination, we began chanting the incantations found in the journal we had discovered earlier, a desperate attempt to close the gateway and free the trapped souls. The cabin trembled, the storm outside mirroring the turmoil within. The mirror's surface shattered with a deafening crash, and the spirits let out a final, anguished wail before dissipating into the ether. The door swung open, and the storm outside began to subside, the relentless winds finally giving way to a calm silence. Exhausted and battered, we made our way back to the camp, the marks in the snow now fading as if erased by the very forces we had confronted. When rescue teams arrived days later, they found us physically unscathed but mentally scarred by the ordeal. Franklin was never seen again, his fate sealed by the very storm he had sought to conquer. The remaining members of the expedition struggled to rebuild their lives. The memories of that winter a constant reminder of the horrors that lie beyond the edge of human ambition. The legend of Franklin Island grew. Tales of restless spirits and malevolent forces that guarded the Arctic wilderness with an unforgiving grip. Some say the symbols etched in the snow are a warning to those who dare to follow in our footsteps, a testament to the thin line between exploration and obsession. Years have passed, but the memories of that tragic winter linger like a ghostly echo, a haunting reminder of the darkness that can dwell within the human spirit and the untamed forces of nature. I often find myself gazing out at the icy expanse, the whispers of the lost souls carried by the wind, forever seeking the release that eluded them and casting a shadow over the frozen wilderness. And so, I warn others, heed the warnings of those who came before, respect the boundaries set by the wilderness, and understand that some mysteries are best left unexplored. For in the heart of the Arctic, amidst the relentless snow and the haunting silence, lies a darkness that can consume even the bravest of souls, leaving behind only whispers of fear and the eternal struggle between man and nature. Story number 4. The Vanishing of the Snowshores, Norway. 1959. I still wake up in the dead of night. The icy winds of that winter in 1959 whispering through my dreams like the restless spirits we encountered. My name is Lars Eriksson, and the tragic disappearance of 3 of my closest friends during that fateful snowshoeing trip has left an indelible mark on my soul, haunting me every time I recall the eerie silence and the inexplicable terror that enveloped us. It was early December, the air crisp and biting as the first heavy snows began to blanket the remote wilderness of Nordmarka in Norway. My friends, Knut and Henrik, were seasoned adventurers, each with a passion for exploring the untouched beauty of our homeland's rugged landscapes. We had planned this trip meticulously, eager to escape the confines of our everyday lives and immerse ourselves in the serene, yet unforgiving, embrace of nature. The day we set out was one of clear skies and bright sunshine, the snow glistening under the midday sun like a field of diamonds. Our gear was packed with everything we could possibly need: warm clothing, ample food supplies, sturdy snowshoes, and our trusted maps of the region. We were prepared for the challenges the wilderness might throw at us, confident in our ability to navigate through the dense forests and treacherous trails. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the towering pines stood silent and stoic, their branches heavy with freshly fallen snow. The tranquility of our surroundings was both soothing and awe-inspiring, a stark contrast to the bustling city life we had left behind. We laughed and chatted, sharing stories and enjoying each other's company, the bond of friendship strengthening with every step we took. By late afternoon, we reached a clearing that offered a breathtaking view of the surrounding mountains, their peaks shrouded in mist and shadow. We decided to set up camp here for the night, eager to rest and prepare for the next day's journey. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the snow-covered ground as we built a fire to ward off the encroaching cold. As darkness settled in, the temperature plummeted, and the once vibrant sky turned a deep shade of indigo. We huddled around the fire, sharing a hearty meal and reveling in the warmth it provided. The stars began to twinkle overhead, their light shimmering through the gaps in the trees. It was a perfect evening, the kind that etched itself into your memory forever. But as night deepened, an unsettling feeling began to creep into the air, a sense of unease that none of us could quite place. The wind picked up, howling through the forest with an intensity that seemed almost sentient. The flames of our fire flickered violently, casting eerie shadows that danced and twisted in the darkness. We tried to ignore it, attributing it to the natural chill of the night, but the feeling of being watched lingered like a heavy fog. Around midnight, as we settled into our sleeping bags, the storm began to brew. Snowflakes, initially gentle, transformed into a relentless barrage, swirling around our tent with a ferocity that made it impossible to see beyond its flimsy walls. The howling wind pierced through the fabric, shaking the tent violently and threatening to tear it apart. Canute, ever the brave one, tried to reassure us. "It's just a snowstorm," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. "We've faced worse before." But as the night wore on, the storm showed no signs of abating. The snow piled higher, muffling any sounds beyond the tent and creating an oppressive silence that pressed in on us from all sides. It was during these long, sleepless hours that the true horror began to unfold. Around 2 a.m., we were jolted awake by a series of faint knocking sounds against the tent. At first, we thought it was merely the wind finding new ways to batter our shelter. But the knocking grew louder and more deliberate, as if someone or something was trying to get our attention. My heart pounded in my chest as I glanced around, searching for the source of the noise. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper. No answer came, only the persistent storm raging outside. The knocking continued, rhythmic and insistent, echoing through the small space of our tent. Suddenly, the tent flaps were ripped away by a powerful gust of wind, and a blinding shower of snow flooded inside, chilling us to the bone. The sight that greeted us sent a wave of terror through our veins. Through the swirling snow, we saw shadowy figures standing just outside the tent, a group of indistinct shapes, their forms blurred by the relentless snowfall. Their eyes, if they could be called that, seemed to burn with an otherworldly intensity, staring directly into our souls. The air around them felt thick with malevolence, an invisible force pressing down on us, making it difficult to breathe. Before we could react, one of the figures raised a hand, its movements slow and deliberate. The others followed suit, their presence becoming more defined as they stepped closer, the snowflakes around them seeming to dance with a life of their own. Panic surged through us as we realized we were not dealing with any natural phenomenon. We were facing something far more sinister. "We have to leave," Ol shouted, grabbing his snowshoes and attempting to pull himself free from the layers of snow that had accumulated around him. But the figures advanced relentlessly, their silent, probing gazes making it clear that escape was futile. As they moved closer, the temperature within the tent seemed to drop even further, our breaths visible in the frigid air. The air grew thick with an inexplicable sense of dread, the presence of these apparitions overwhelming our senses. In a desperate bid for survival, we tried to push past them, but their grip was unyielding, their presence oppressive and suffocating. One by one, we felt a coldness seep into our bodies, our muscles stiffening as if frozen by their touch. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was the haunting gaze of those spectral figures, their eyes burning with a silent, eternal torment. When I finally awoke, it was morning. The storm had passed, leaving behind a pristine, snow-covered landscape bathed in the soft light of dawn. Our tent lay in ruins, the remnants of the night's terror scattered across the snow. I tried to reach out to my friends, but they were nowhere to be found, only the faint, fading footprints leading into the depths of the forest. Frantically, I called out their names, my voice echoing through the silent wilderness. But there was no response. The realization that they were gone, lost to the merciless storm and whatever malevolent forces had ensnared them, hit me with brutal clarity. I stumbled through the snow, following the trail of footprints that led deeper into the forest, hoping against hope that I could find them. Hours passed in a blur of white and darkness, the cold numbing my limbs and clouding my thoughts. Just as exhaustion began to take hold, I stumbled upon the remains of their last stand, a small clearing where the snow was undisturbed, save for 3 sets of footprints that abruptly ended at the edge of a frozen pond. There was no sign of struggle, no traces of any conflict, only the eerie silence of the frozen expanse. Despair settled in as I realized that my friends were gone, their fate sealed by the unforgiving wilderness and the mysterious forces that had claimed them. I made my way back to the village, my body battered by the elements and my mind haunted by the memories of that night. The authorities conducted extensive searches, but no trace of Canute or Henrik was ever found. only the lingering whispers of their disappearance and the haunted glances of those who had heard the storm's sinister secrets. Years have passed since that tragic winter, but the memory of my friends and the horror we endured remains vivid, a constant reminder of the thin line between adventure and nightmare. The legend of the ghostly figures that haunt the snowy trails of Mount Hood persists, a cautionary tale for those who dare to venture too far into the wilderness. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered peaks, the winds whispering secrets that only the mountains understand. The image of my friends frozen in time, their eyes wide with terror, haunts me like a ghost that refuses to fade. The unanswered questions about what truly happened that night linger in my mind, a mystery that remains unsolved and a tragedy that continues to echo through the silent snows of Mount Hood. And so, I warn others to heed the warnings of the past, to respect the boundaries set by those who have come before, and to understand that some places hold secrets too dark to uncover. For in the heart of the wilderness, amidst the silent snow and the lingering shadows, lies a darkness that can consume even the strongest of spirits, leaving behind only echoes of fear and the eternal struggle for survival. Story number 5. The Vanishing of Mary Williams, Banff, Canada, 1967. I still wake up in the dead of night, the icy winds of that winter's eve in 1967 clawing at my consciousness like the restless spirits we encountered. My name is Daniel Thompson, and the disappearance of Mary Williams in the heart of Banff National Park has haunted me for decades. A ghostly whisper that refuses to fade away. It was late November when Mary decided to take a solitary walk around the picturesque trails of Banff. We had been close friends since childhood, our bond forged through countless adventures and shared secrets. Mary was always the adventurous one, the free spirit who found solace in nature's embrace. On that fateful day, the weather was unforgivingly cold, with snowflakes dancing menacingly in the frigid air. The forecast had warned of an impending storm, but Mary, ever undeterred, believed the beauty of the winter landscape was worth the risk. Mary left our cabin around midday, her warm coat buttoned tightly against the biting cold, her woolen hat snugly fitted over her head. She promised to return by evening, but as the hours slipped by, her absence began to weigh heavily on my mind. I tried calling her several times, but the snow-covered trails muffled her voice, leaving me with only the howling wind as a response. The next morning, panic set in when Mary failed to return. We alerted the local authorities, and a search party was quickly organized. Friends and family joined in the desperate hunt, combing through the dense forest, their breaths visible in the frigid air. Days turned into restless nights, and the hope of finding Mary alive began to dwindle. Then, 3 days into the search, a series of small footprints were discovered leading into the depths of the forest. They were distinctly Mary's, small, precise, yet gradually fading as they ventured further into the wilderness. The footprints seemed to disappear into an area known for its dense, uncharted woods, a place where even the bravest hesitated to tread. A week after Mary's disappearance, authorities stumbled upon an abandoned cabin at the forest's edge. The structure was dilapidated, its windows shattered, and the door hanging off its hinges, creaking mournfully in the biting wind. The search team approached cautiously, the silence around them oppressive, broken only by the soft crunch of snow underfoot. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay. The cabin appeared untouched, as if the occupants had simply vanished into thin air. In the center of the room lay a single photograph of Mary, her radiant smile frozen in time, resting atop a wooden table. There were no signs of struggle, no personal belongings scattered about, only the haunting image of Mary staring back at them with eyes that seemed to plead for help. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. Whispers of the supernatural began to circulate, tales of restless spirits and ancient curses that lurked within the forest. Locals spoke of hearing faint cries and seeing shadowy figures moving just beyond the tree line, their presence felt but never fully seen. The cabin became a place of dread, avoided by those who knew of its tragic history. Years passed, but the mystery of Mary Williams' disappearance remained unsolved. Some believed she had succumbed to the unforgiving wilderness, lost to the elements. Others insisted there was something more sinister at play, an unseen force that had claimed her soul and left behind nothing but unanswered questions. My obsession with the case only grew stronger as time went on. The loss of my dear friend left a void that nothing could fill, and the unanswered questions gnawed at my sanity. I spent countless nights poring over maps, weather reports, and witness statements, trying to piece together the fragmented puzzle of Mary's final moments. But the forest held its secrets tightly, the shadows concealing the truth from prying eyes. One winter night, driven by a mix of desperation and determination, I decided to venture into the very woods that had taken Mary from us. Armed with only a flashlight, a sturdy pair of boots, and an unyielding resolve, I set out to uncover the truth that had eluded us for so long. The snow was falling heavily, each flake a testament to the storm that had claimed Mary. The forest was alive with the sounds of the night, rustling leaves, distant howls, and the ever-present whisper of the wind through the trees. As I navigated the treacherous trails, the footprints that had once led to Mary's disappearance seemed to guide me deeper into the heart of the forest. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced around me, playing tricks on my weary mind. The cold was relentless, seeping through every layer of my clothing, making my fingers numb and my breath visible in the frigid air. Hours passed, and the forest seemed to close in around me, the dense canopy blocking out the moonlight and stars. I stumbled upon the abandoned cabin, now shrouded in a blanket of snow and silence. My heart raced as I approached, the haunting image of Mary in the photograph echoing in my mind. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside, the oppressive silence enveloping me like a suffocating shroud. The cabin was as I remembered it, untouched and eerie. I moved towards the table, where Mary's photograph still lay, her eyes seemingly following my every move. As I reached out to touch the picture, a cold gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing my flashlight and plunging me into darkness. The temperature plummeted, and the air grew thick with an inexplicable presence. Suddenly, the faint sound of crying filled the cabin, echoing off the walls and piercing through the silence. I turned, my heart pounding, but there was no one there, only the lingering image of Mary staring back at me from the photograph. The cries grew louder, more desperate, as if Mary's spirit was reaching out to me, begging for release. I felt a chill run down my spine as shadows began to move within the room, shapes that defied explanation. The whispers of the forest seemed to converge within the cabin, their voices a cacophony of sorrow and fear. The temperature dropped further, the cold now a physical force pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. Desperation surged through me as I realized the truth. Mary had not simply vanished. Her spirit was trapped within the very heart of the forest, bound by an ancient curse that kept her and others like her confined to the shadows. The abandoned cabin was her prison, a gateway between the living and the dead, where restless souls were forever lost to the winter's embrace. Determined to free Mary and put an end to the curse that had claimed her, I delved deeper into the cabin's secrets. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard, I discovered an old journal belonging to a long-dead villager who had once lived in Frostheim. The pages were filled with cryptic symbols and dark rituals meant to protect the village from the malevolent forces that roamed the forest. But the journal also spoke of a failed ritual, one that had inadvertently bound the spirits to the land, trapping them in an eternal winter. Armed with this knowledge, I knew what I had to do. I gathered the remaining pages of the journal and began the ritual, chanting the incantations with a fervent hope that I could break the curse and free Mary from her spectral prison. The air around me grew thick with energy, the shadows swirling in a frenzied dance as the storm outside mirrored the chaos within the cabin. As I reached the climax of the ritual, a blinding light filled the room, and the oppressive presence that had held Mary captive began to dissipate. The shadows receded, and the cries of the restless spirits faded into a peaceful silence. Mary's photograph glowed with a warm, ethereal light before slowly fading away, her spirit finally free to move on from the mortal realm. Exhausted but triumphant, I left the cabin, the snowstorm having subsided, leaving behind a serene stillness that felt like a new beginning. As I made my way back through the forest, the footprints that had once led to Mary's disappearance were now replaced by fresh tracks of my own, a sign that the curse had been lifted and the spirits could finally find peace. The rescue teams found me hours later, guiding me back to civilization with a mixture of relief and awe. The mystery of Mary Williams' disappearance had finally been solved, and the haunting legacy of Frostheim was laid to rest. But the experience left an indelible mark on me, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead, and the enduring power of hope and determination in the face of darkness. Years have passed since that harrowing winter, but the memory of Mary and the spirits of Frostheim remain a poignant chapter in my life. I often find myself gazing out at the snow-covered trails of Banff, the wind whispering tales of lost souls and ancient curses that linger in the shadows. The story of Mary Williams serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the mysteries that lie hidden within nature's most beautiful and unforgiving landscapes. And so, I warn others to respect the wilderness, heed the warnings of those who have walked these paths before, and understand that some mysteries are best left undisturbed. For in the heart of the forest, amidst the silent snow and the lingering echoes of the past, lies a darkness that can consume even the strongest of spirits, leaving behind only whispers of fear and the eternal struggle for redemption. Story number 6. The Mount Hood Blizzard, USA, 1959. I still wake up in the dead of night, the memory of that December storm on Mount Hood clawing at my consciousness like the icy winds that once threatened to swallow us whole. My name is Thomas Bennett, and the events of January 1959 have left an indelible mark on my soul, haunting me every time I think back to the night we never truly escaped. It was the beginning of the winter climbing season, and Mount Hood stood majestic and unforgiving, its peak often shrouded in thick, impenetrable clouds. A group of 5 of us, myself, Robert, Emily, Jack, and Susan, decided to challenge its notorious slopes, drawn by the allure of conquering one of the most formidable peaks in the Rockies. We were seasoned climbers, bonded by years of shared adventures and the unspoken understanding that the mountains demanded both respect and caution. The ascent began smoothly, the crisp mountain air invigorating our spirits as we navigated through well-trodden paths. Days passed with a rhythm of climbing, skiing, and setting up camp under the watchful eyes of towering pines and rocky outcrops. The camaraderie among us was strong, each of us driven by the thrill of the climb and the beauty of the untouched wilderness. But on the 4th night, as we reached a particularly steep and isolated section of the trail, the weather took a turn for the worse. Dark clouds rolled in from the north, bringing with them a biting chill that seeped into our bones. By evening, the first flakes of snow began to fall. Light and almost serene, we lit our campfire, the flames flickering against the encroaching darkness, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy amidst the growing unease. Robert, our most experienced climber, kept a close eye on the sky, his face etched with concern. "We need to head back," he warned, his voice steady but tense. "This storm is picking up faster than we anticipated." Emily and Jack, ever the optimists, dismissed his concerns with smiles and reassurances, eager to push forward despite the worsening conditions. Susan, though young, shared Robert's apprehension, her eyes darting nervously to the darkening sky. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, the instinctual fear of nature's wrath gnawing at my resolve. As night deepened, the storm unleashed its full fury. Snow fell in relentless sheets, reducing visibility to mere feet. The wind howled like a living beast, shaking our tents and threatening to tear us from the ground. We huddled together, trying to stay warm and protect each other from the storm's wrath. But the sense of impending doom was palpable. In the midst of the chaos, strange sounds began to emerge from the howling wind. Faint, eerie noises that seemed to echo our fears. It started with the sound of faint footsteps crunching through the snow, slow and deliberate, as if someone or something was following us. Emily clutched Jack's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Robert tried to reassure her, though his own fear was evident. "It's just the wind playing tricks on us," he said, though I wasn't so sure. But the sounds persisted, growing louder and more distinct. The footsteps were accompanied by low, mournful moans that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the mountain. Shadows danced at the edges of our tent, shapes that defied logic and reason, twisting and contorting in the flickering light of our lantern. Suddenly, Jack let out a blood-curdling scream. "Susan!" His voice pierced through the storm, raw with terror. We scrambled out of our tents, eyes scanning the blinding snow for any sign of him. But he was nowhere to be found, only the relentless storm and the haunting sounds of the unknown. Panic set in as we realized that someone, or something, had taken Jack. We frantically searched the area, calling his name into the howling wind. But our cries were swallowed by the storm's fury. The footprints led us to a narrow ravine, where the snow was undisturbed, as if the storm had wiped away any trace of Jack's presence. Desperate and terrified, we decided to press on, hoping to find shelter and wait out the storm. As we trekked through the blinding whiteout, the eerie noises followed us, growing louder and more insistent. It was as if the mountain itself was alive, its ancient spirit awakened by our intrusion. Hours passed in a blur of white and darkness, the storm showing no signs of relenting. Our bodies grew numb from the cold, our minds clouded by fear and exhaustion. Emily began to hallucinate. Her eyes glazed over as she muttered incoherent phrases about lost souls and vengeful spirits. Robert and I struggled to keep her grounded, while Susan remained stoic, her determination unwavering despite the growing sense of dread. Just as hope began to fade, we stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin nestled between two towering pines. The structure was dilapidated, its windows shattered and doors hanging off their hinges. Desperation drove us inside, seeking refuge from the storm's relentless assault. The interior was cold and musty, the remnants of past lives scattered throughout the room, faded photographs, broken furniture, and the lingering scent of decay. As we huddled together for warmth, the strange noises resumed, now inside the cabin, echoing off the walls with an eerie resonance. The air grew colder, our breaths visible in the frigid space, as a shadowy figure materialized in the corner of the room. Its eyes were hollow, staring directly into our souls with a malevolent intent that sent chills down our spines. "Why are you here?" Robert demanded, his voice shaking with fear. The figure remained silent, his presence oppressive and suffocating. Emily screamed, pointing towards the figure, but it dissipated into the shadows, leaving us in a state of stunned disbelief. The room seemed to close in around us, the walls pulsating with an unseen energy that threatened to consume us. In a final, desperate attempt to escape, we pushed towards the door, but it wouldn't budge, the hinges groaning under an invisible force. The storm outside intensified, the howling wind now accompanied by the sound of ghostly footsteps and distant screams that seemed to come from all directions. "We have to break out," Susan shouted, her resolve unbroken despite the terror that gripped us. With a surge of adrenaline, we tore at the door, the wood splintering under our frantic efforts. The barrier finally gave way, and we tumbled out into the storm, the cold wind biting at our faces as we ran for our lives, the haunting presence of the mountain chasing us through the blinding snow. We didn't stop until the storm began to abate, the winds dying down and the snow slowing to a gentle fall. Exhausted and frostbitten, we made our way back to our vehicle, the trail now erased by the relentless storm. As we drove away, the memory of that night lingered like a ghostly whisper, a reminder of the darkness that can dwell within the most beautiful and serene places. When rescue teams arrived days later, they found our vehicle buried under several feet of snow, our tracks leading nowhere, swallowed by the vast expanse of white. Jack was never found. His disappearance a haunting mystery that left our family shattered and our community in mourning. The aftermath of that harrowing ordeal left deep scars on all of us. Emily and Susan struggled with nightmares and a lingering fear of the mountains, while Robert and I grappled with guilt and the unanswered questions that plagued our minds. The legends of Mount Hood grew, tales of restless spirits and vengeful apparitions that claimed the lives of those who dared to challenge its might. Years have passed since that tragic winter, but the memories remain vivid, like ghostly apparitions that visit me in the dead of night. I often find myself staring out at the snow-covered peaks, the winds whispering secrets that only the mountains understand. The image of Jack's disappearance, the shadowy figure in the cabin, and the relentless storm have become a part of who I am, a constant reminder of the thin line between life and death, and the unseen forces that guard the wilderness with an unforgiving ferocity. The Mount Hood blizzard of 1959 remains a chilling chapter in our lives, a story of survival against insurmountable odds and the supernatural forces that lie hidden within nature's most extreme environments. It taught me about the fragility of existence, the power of hope, and the enduring bonds of friendship forged in the face of unimaginable adversity. And so, I warn others, respect the mountains, heed the warnings of those who have come before, and understand that some places hold secrets too dark to uncover. For in the heart of the wilderness, amidst the silent snow and the haunting shadows, lies a darkness that can consume even the strongest of spirits, leaving behind only echoes of fear and the eternal struggle for survival. Story number 7. Haunted at Foggy Village, Scotland. 1900. I still wake up in the dead of night, the icy whispers of that December storm in 1900 echoing through my dreams like the lingering cries of lost souls. My name is William MacLeod, and the events that transpired in the remote village of Muirloch have haunted me ever since. What was meant to be a simple winter retreat with friends turned into a nightmare that still chills me to the bone. It was late November when my friends and I decided to escape the bustling city life of Edinburgh for a weekend in the tranquility of the Scottish Highlands. We sought solace in nature, away from the clamor and chaos that had become all too familiar. Our destination was Muirloch, a secluded village nestled deep within the dense forests and rolling hills, known for its picturesque landscapes and, as the locals would warn, its eerie stillness during the winter months. We arrived on a crisp December afternoon, the sky a dull gray, heavy with the promise of snow. The village was quaint, with stone cottages covered in a thick blanket of frost and smoke curling from chimneys. The locals were sparse, their faces weathered and eyes wary, as if they carried the weight of untold stories. We checked into the only inn in town, a sturdy stone building named the Thistle and Heather, its warm glow a stark contrast to the cold exterior. The innkeeper, a stout man named Angus, welcomed us with a tight smile and a firm handshake. "Welcome to Muirloch," he greeted, his accent thick with the lilt of the Highlands. "The winter nights here can be unforgiving. Make yourselves at home, and don't hesitate to ask if you need anything." Our group consisted of 5 friends. Myself, William, a writer seeking inspiration; Fiona, an artist with a keen eye for beauty; Robert, a doctor with a practical mind; Emily, a teacher with a compassionate heart; and James, a musician whose melodies could soothe even the most troubled soul. We settled into our rooms, the warmth of the hearth offering a comforting embrace against the impending chill. That evening, as darkness enveloped the village, we gathered in the common room of the inn, sharing stories and enjoying the hearty stew Angus had prepared. The fire crackled merrily, casting dancing shadows on the walls adorned with old photographs and local memorabilia. The atmosphere was convivial, the bond of friendship strong as we reveled in each other's company. As midnight approached, the wind began to howl outside, rattling the windows and sending shivers through the stone walls. Fiona suggested we take a walk to admire the snowy landscape, the moonlight casting a silvery glow over the pristine snow. Reluctantly, I agreed, eager to capture the serene beauty in my writing. We bundled up in our warmest coats and stepped out into the biting cold, the snow crunching under our boots. The village was eerily silent, the only sound the whispering wind and the occasional creak of the old cottages settling against the storm. The path led us through the dense forest, the trees towering overhead, their branches heavy with snow, creating a tunnel of darkness that seemed to swallow us whole. As we ventured deeper, the fog began to roll in, thick and impenetrable, obscuring our vision and muffling our footsteps. The once inviting trail became a maze of shadows and whispers, the forest alive with unseen movements. Emily clutched Fiona's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. "Like we're being watched." Before anyone could respond, a series of faint knocking sounds echoed through the trees, followed by the soft thud of footsteps crunching in the snow. Our breaths caught in our throats as we froze, the hairs on the back of our necks standing on end. "Who's there?" Robert called out, his voice steady despite the rising tension. Silence followed, broken only by the relentless wind. We stood motionless, eyes darting through the fog, searching for any sign of movement. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the mist, its outline blurred and indistinct. The figure raised a hand, fingers claw-like, before dissolving back into the fog as quickly as it had appeared. Panic surged through us as we realized we were not alone. The forest seemed to close in around us, the trees whispering secrets we couldn't comprehend. "We need to go back," James insisted, his voice tinged with fear. But the storm had intensified, the wind howling louder, the snow falling harder, making it difficult to find our way. As we stumbled through the thickening blizzard, the knocking sounds returned, louder this time, synchronized with the footsteps that now seemed to follow us relentlessly. The footprints in the snow were large, irregular, unlike any animal or human we had encountered. They led us to the edge of the forest, where an old, abandoned cemetery lay hidden beneath the snowdrifts. Desperate and disoriented, we followed the footprints into the cemetery, the headstones looming like silent sentinels in the storm. The air grew colder, the oppressive stillness pressing down on us. The footprints led to a weathered mausoleum at the center of the cemetery, its doors ajar, revealing a darkened interior that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. "Stay close," I urged, my voice barely audible over the storm. But as we approached the mausoleum, the temperature plummeted further, our breaths forming icy clouds in the frigid air. The knocking sounds intensified, now accompanied by disembodied whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the mausoleum. Inside, the room was adorned with ancient tapestries and flickering candles, their light casting eerie shadows that danced across the stone floor. At the far end stood a large portrait, the image of a man with cold, piercing eyes that seemed to follow us wherever we moved. The man's expression was stern, his gaze devoid of warmth, sending a chill down our spines. Fiona stepped forward, her artistic eye unable to tear itself away from the painting. "Do you see this?" she whispered, pointing to the man's eyes that seemed almost lifelike. "There's something off about them." Suddenly, the candles extinguished themselves, plunging the room into darkness. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, filling the space with an oppressive atmosphere. "Leave! Leave now!" The voices seemed to chant, their tone both sorrowful and menacing. Before we could react, the door to the mausoleum slammed shut, the sound echoing ominously through the chamber. Panic erupted as we realized we were trapped, the storm outside intensifying as if reacting to our presence. "We have to find another way out," Robert demanded, his medical training pushing him to remain calm. We frantically searched the room, but the heavy stone doors showed no signs of yielding. The whispers turned into wails, and the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own, the portrait's eyes glowing with an unnatural light. In the midst of the chaos, Emily screamed, pointing towards the back of the room. A hidden door had opened, revealing a narrow passageway that led deeper into the mausoleum. Without hesitation, we followed, the only path towards our survival. The passageway was narrow and claustrophobic, the walls closing in around us as we navigated the twisting corridors. The whispers followed us, growing louder, now a cacophony of anguished voices that threatened to drive us insane. The footprints reappeared, leading us towards the end of the passage. We burst into a large, open chamber, the snowstorm now raging outside as if the entire mountain was conspiring against us. In the center of the room stood a stone altar, covered in dark stains that looked suspiciously like blood. The air was thick with the scent of decay and something else, something deeply unsettling that made my stomach churn. As we approached the altar, the portrait's man appeared before us, his eyes burning with a malevolent intensity. "You should not have come," he intoned, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Now you must remain." Before we could react, the ground beneath us began to tremble, the snowstorm outside turning into a blinding whirlwind of ice and snow. The walls of the chamber seemed to pulse with dark energy, the shadows coalescing into twisted, grotesque forms that reached out towards us. "Run!" James shouted, his voice breaking the trance-like fear that had seized us. We turned and fled back through the passageway, the chamber collapsing behind us as we navigated the labyrinthine corridors. The storm's fury seemed to amplify our every step, the howling wind and swirling snow making it nearly impossible to find our way. Finally, we emerged into the storm, the village now a blurred, snow-covered nightmare. The footprints led us back to the inn, where Angus stood at the door, his expression grave. "You shouldn't have ventured so far," he warned, his eyes filled with sorrow. "The spirits of Murloc are restless, bound by ancient curses and forgotten tragedies." Desperate to escape, we piled into our vehicle. The snow piled high around the wheels as we fought against the storm's relentless assault. The vehicle struggled to move, the snow swallowing our attempts to drive forward. The whispers followed us, now a deafening roar that threatened to drown out our thoughts. In a final, desperate attempt, we broke free from the inn and sped down the treacherous roads, the village fading into the blinding white as we raced towards the safety of the city lights. The storm began to subside, the howling winds giving way to an oppressive silence that left us shaken and breathless. When we finally reached civilization, the relief was overwhelming, but the memories of that night remained etched in our minds. The inn was found abandoned, the windows shattered, and the portrait of the cold-eyed man still hanging on the wall, his gaze now forever trapped within the frame. The authorities were baffled by our disappearance and the inexplicable phenomena we had encountered. But the locals knew the truth. Murloc was a village cursed by its past, haunted by the restless spirits of those who had vanished into the storm, forever bound to the snowy wilderness. Our group was forever changed by the experience, the bonds of friendship strengthened by the ordeal yet marred by the trauma we had endured. We never spoke of that night again, the memories too painful and the fear too real. The village of Murloc remains abandoned to this day, a silent testament to the dark forces that lurk within the heart of the Scottish Highlands. Years later, I still find myself drawn back to the mountains, seeking answers and closure that have eluded me for decades. The whispers of that night echo in my mind, a constant reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead, and the eternal struggle between hope and despair. And so, I warn others, heed the warnings of the past, respect the boundaries set by those who came before us, and understand that some places hold secrets too dark to uncover. For in the heart of the wilderness, amidst the silent snow and the haunting shadows, lies a darkness that can consume even the strongest of spirits, leaving behind only echoes of fear and the eternal struggle for survival.